testing. Okay, and we're live. Okay, gentlemen, thank you shout out to Lars D and Nice Things. Am I having a stroke or are you muted? Thank you. I did not have my audio on at the beginning. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm gonna hop right into it. I don't need to riff on that for too long. Well, we just killed 3 minutes of that. Thank you to the live homies that caught that. Yeah, I was riffing with the neighbor before, didn't quite get the full setup, but boom, we're live, we're good. That could have been a hell of a lot worse. Okay, so all I was saying, little programming note, moving to Wednesdays, probably Wednesdays 8 a.m. Pacific. That's 11 a.m. Eastern. So let me know if you have any thoughts on that, about doing the live show then. Lars D, I know you're international, so I think that's might cause something for you, but I'm just curious. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that. Also, this is the last time I'm reporting live from Durham, North Carolina. It's been chill, but I'm going back to LA, so I'll be reporting there. So I'm going to, I'm thinking of shifting. I'm going to shift the show, so I'm going Wednesdays at again 8 a.m. Pacific. Probably, we're playing with it. We're shooting from the hip here. We'll see how we like that. But I'm also gonna upgrade the studio setup. Yeah, damn, I just said all this stuff and I was on fucking mute. Or the audio was right, but the siding's great of the house, but I think maybe get a chiller background anyway. We're gonna try to upgrade the setup. We're gonna think if we can make this look a little bit more professional. See if we can do anything on that. But if you have any thoughts on the show time or a better time to go live, the podcast will still come out. For those that listen on the podcast, it's still going to come out once a week, and I don't think it matters too much when it gets published. If you listen on the podcast, it'll still be once a week, but it's probably going to be Wednesdays by 10 a.m. Pacific. It'll propagate. So that's the deal there. Dick@nogradient.com. Let me know if you have any thoughts on that. Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to go straight into it here and just what we're going to be riffing on. We're going to riff a little bit on the pandemic. We're going to talk about the right to protest, social injustice, and lockdowns. We're going to riff on that. I keep riffing on that stuff. Also, religious gatherings. There's an interesting court case or brief, or I don't know the technical term, but there's an interesting thing with regards to New York and the First Amendment, which I think is worth touching on. I'm a big First Amendment guy through and through. We're also going to talk about Apple claiming moral superiority when their biggest market is China, and they constantly bend over backwards to censor at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party. Also, we're going to talk about crypto stablecoins today, and also, so stablecoins are tied to the represent a cryptocurrency that's tied to typically a fiat currency, so a government-backed currency. Think a U.S. dollar, a euro, something like that. We're going to talk about Tether is big in the space, USDC. We're also going to talk about comp, which I've talked about. It's a borrowing and supplying asset platform. Interesting. There's some interesting stuff going on. So again, we're going to talk some crypto stuff today. I think it is the single most interesting thing right now going on in technology, and not even just as a technological thing. I think it's super interesting as just what I think it has the potential to do for society in general. And that's such a broad term. Oh, it's going to change society, but no, people use that term loosely, and I really think it's going to have some profound effects. Similar to how the internet changed society. So we're going to riff on that. Also going to close with some thoughts on we still don't know how to use fast internet. So within a decade, I think 1 gigabit per second is going to be ubiquitous. Right now, if you have 1 gigabit per second internet connection, we're going to dive into it, but you're not really using it. You're only using it for fat downloads or uploads, but that's not really... I'm curious what kind of applications are going to get built. So we're going to riff on that. I'm going to talk about tech, why I'm so interested in technology in general and in inventing, me not inventing things, please. But just people inventing things, companies inventing things. Why I think I'm so fascinated by that. Why I think it's important, because I think it increases the margin of error. So the better technology, the more people can screw up, and humans can keep living their lives and pursuing the things they want to pursue. And also shout out Nice Things IO. I want to end with why being long humanity is the only way to live. Why thinking this is that humanity's epic, and we're gonna figure these problems out. We're gonna do awesome things. That's the only way to live, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so we got under 50 minutes here. We had a little technical difficulty. That's actually the first kind of technical difficulty besides some of the interviews I did with the audio wasn't great. But it was good. Could have been a hell of a lot worse. So let's dive right into it. Okay. So, pandemic, and this is mostly targeted at the U.S., but Peter Zeihan had a piece called The State of the Pandemic in the United States. I think he's really good. He's really fun to read. I highly recommend you subscribe to his newsletter. He's fun to read. He talks about big picture stuff. I talk on the show a lot about thinking in decades. So he's always putting things in perspective, and I think it's really important to do that, because if you're in the daily churn game, if you're just looking at the daily churn and you're looking at the news events come across and you're just seeing blip, 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 and you're not zooming out and seeing what do those blips mean in a bigger picture, well, then you're not really informing yourself. You're not informing yourself, and you don't actually, you know things that are happening, but you don't know what's going on. How's that for breaking it down for you? Okay, so he had a quote in here. So I'm not going to read the whole quote, but he basically said, America's political split as regards to COVID perceptions is not ideological. To a large degree, America's left and right have experienced different pandemics. It is perfectly natural that their perceptions reflect that. Yet, moving forward, we expect those perceptions to align. So he was talking about, it's perfectly reasonable that someone, a governor or a mayor in a southern city or a southern state or a Midwestern state or Midwestern city is not going to think the same thing that Mayor de Blasio or Governor Cuomo is going to be thinking with regards to the pandemic. You're talking about one situation of kind of spread out, not quite as population dense. New York City is the most population dense place in the United States. So it's natural to have people would really like to make things political, and they'd say, this is the right's being ignorant, or the left is forcing too many lockdowns, blah blah blah. Okay, let's take a step back before we just dog the other side. The one thing you do have to understand about this is that it's reasonable for different states to have different responses or different feelings about the virus, given that they have different situations. They don't have and the biggest one being population density. More people are closer together. That's how it spreads. Bada bing, bada boom. And I think you look at someone like and I'm not defending what southern states have done, right? I think they've been too lax, right? But I think it's easy to say, oh, look, they're just doing it because they're doing it because they're listening to Trump or whatever political reason. You say, well, actually, maybe they're doing it because they're not quite in the same position as having 8 million people in a dozen square miles. I don't know how big Manhattan is, but my point is that it's a little bit of that. Okay, let's go on though. We can expect to see. This is another interesting thing. So he also said, people talk about, okay, so Memorial Day happened. We have all these protests that are happening. They have been winding down, but they're still happening. We have July 4th coming up. People want to, okay, big question for me, and he shed light on this, is, okay, how long does it take before a big event, a big meeting of, a bunch of people getting together, how long before that reflects in the numbers? Well, it's 3 to 5 weeks. So Memorial Day is barely baked in. That was May 25th. It's 3 to 5 weeks. So it's fucking June 27th. So it's not even that upper range of the 5 weeks. We don't even have Memorial Day baked in, let alone all these protests. We're already starting to see upticks, but maybe those upticks are still just from Memorial Day. Maybe they're not even from the protests. It takes a while before these mass gathering events take to reflect in the numbers. So it's going to be super interesting to see what goes on. And July 4th is going to be another thing. And we're not going to see the effects of these things for 3 to 5 weeks. A lot of the times you'd say, you'd see people say, oh, okay, well, the state opened 2 weeks ago and you can see the numbers now. They haven't gone up a lot. Well, it takes 3 to 5. These things take time. It takes more than 2 weeks to actually see this stuff reflected in the numbers. So understand that when you're looking at this stuff, there is a lag period. Now, this isn't specific to the United States. Shout out Lars D. This is just general. This is just general how the virus works here. Okay, so I also want to touch on one more kind of technical thing here. The CDC recently said that the new estimate for the actual number of coronavirus cases. So currently, there's been 2.3 million confirmed COVID-19 tests. And the CDC recently came out, I think on Thursday or Friday, and they think it's probably closer to 23 million. How do they know that? Blood tests. and blood tests from people donating from people donating blood, and not. I think it's all blood donations, and just view. I think they might have used another metric or another input to determine this number, but not only running antibody tests on blood that was taken from people, but also running actual COVID-19 test. Is the virus still there? Not just is the antibody there, because the antibody tests, at least currently, they're not as accurate as the test for whether the virus is still there. So that's interesting. So if and that's one of the big questions of this virus. We can't know how deadly it is, because we don't know how many people have it. There could be a lot. I mean, the CDC thinks there's a lot more people that probably likely have it and that are asymptomatic. It doesn't mean it's not super dangerous. It doesn't mean we need to wear a fucking mask. We need to be careful. But the reality is there aren't things we're going to know about this thing for a couple years, and that's just the reality. And we talked about that on the show. I also, it's pretty hilarious to me that I just saw before I went live here. I saw Bloomberg Opinion was like, "Oh, why is there an uptick in cases in the United States?" And certainly, it's been people kind of just getting done. I know, just anecdotally, people are like, "Okay, I'm getting kind of done," and they're going to kind of go do their thing. And certainly, it's partly that, but it's like they didn't mention what about the whole thousands, hundreds of thousands, even probably over a million. Millions of people gathering and cramming together and screaming and doing all these things right next to you. What about that? It's funny that you can't even say that. You can both support the protest, which I 100% do. I 100% protest of every type. I think it's a fundamental right. But then people are almost afraid to say. People are afraid to say, well, actually, the protests are causing this. Or at least contributing to it, right? You're not really seeing that. And it's just interesting that it's like, why are we, I don't know why we're skirting around that. I think people are afraid to think that they're not supporting the protests. And that's partly the political climate we're in. You can't, you God forbid you say anything that would be, make you look like you're not supporting the protest, which I 100% do support the protest. But the thing is, it's okay to say that they're contributing to it. I know 100% that, I mean, of course they're contributing to it, but I believe that they should, I believe people, pandemic or not, people should be allowed to protest. It's too fundamental of a right. And yes, there's trade-offs to everything. It's not a perfect solution. Will more people die because of protesting? Absolutely. That's a trade-off. And it's too hard when you start policing when and how people can protest. And I want to touch on there's a court case or a brief. I don't exactly know. I guess it was a court. Yeah, it was a case brought against Governor Cuomo of New York. It was some priests and rabbis that they were bringing. A case again, they were arguing that so religious assembly is restricted to 25% total capacity. So if a room can hold 100, they can only have 25 people in there. Whereas essential businesses that the government has deemed, this is essential, can have 100% capacity. Now, to anyone who is a First Amendment hawk like your boy is, I really believe I'm not religious at all. I'm not. I'm not going to say, I believe in something, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, relax. Like, I'm an atheist. I don't believe, I believe in energy. I believe in people. I believe in doing good things. It is what it is. But I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, actually, like kindergarten through Fuking College, all the way. But just because I'm not Catholic, just because I'm not religious, or Muslim or Jewish, doesn't mean, I'm not gonna. I understand how fundamental of a right it is, and how fundamental our founding fathers believed religious practice, how sacred that is. So, I'm fully on board with that. Just like I'm fully on board with. So anyway, let me cut to the chase here, actually. So they won, and I think they got an injunction or something. Basically, they're allowed to, they argued for, can we get, so I think day camps, I think, were at either 50%, 100%. So even day camps were at higher percentage than religious assembly, which is absolutely ridiculous. That is a fundamental thing. You want to assemble, you want to be in your community, you want to pray, you want to practice how you practice. That's a beautiful thing. I totally support that. But to have day camps that have less restrictions than religious groups, I mean, come on, that's pretty insane. Now I'm not gonna, this is tough stuff. I get it's tough stuff. Everyone's trying to do their fucking best. I'm not gonna say Cuomo hates the First Amendment, is trying to ruin this country. It's like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying though that during a pandemic, extreme measures are taken, and it's important that we make sure that the extreme measures that are taken are being distributed evenly and fairly, and that we're not eroding our fundamental rights as Americans. So that is okay. Another thing Cuomo said, it's pretty funny. So I also want to riff on this. Cuomo said, and they posted, and let's see, what is the actual name of this? So statement. Well, this is from the justice.gov website. The statement, Assistant Attorney General Eric Dryband, federal courts religious liberty ruling. You can just Google that and find it. They have a few quotes from Cuomo in there. You read the arguments. I skimmed it. It's 39 fucking pages. I'm not going to act like I read the whole thing. But it's pretty actually incredible how accessible the legal document is. I don't read many legal documents. But go for it. It's pretty. You can figure it out by looking at it. You can understand what the fuck's going on. But it's interesting. They quote Cuomo in there. They said he said things like, okay, yes, protests. I support the protest, but protest safely. But then he while he's saying that, he's saying, if your business can't socially distance, and you can't operate while socially distant, then we're not going to let you open up. And then obviously his case on religious assembly, limiting that to 25%. Not cool, brother. But I think it's and I just fucking tweeted this morning, but here you either support protesting the lockdown and you either support the right to protest the lockdown and the right to protest racial injustice, and you support the right to religious assembly and religious gatherings, or you don't believe in the First Amendment. Like you cannot pick and choose. You can't say, okay, religion's out because I'm not religious, so people shouldn't be able to gather. But I do support the racial injustice protests, or I don't support the racial injustice protests, but I do support, or George Floyd protests, however you want to refer to them, just to be clear. Or I support the lockdown protests, but I don't support those protests. And that's not how it works. Or it's fine for you to have that belief. You can have that belief that you don't support the right. You can support the right of some to protest and not others. That's fine if you believe that's your right to believe what you want to believe. But don't claim that you actually believe in the First Amendment, because the First Amendment has no carve-outs for different people. Okay, it has no carve-outs. It's a blanket. You have the right to protest. You have the right to peaceably assemble. Full stop. Doesn't matter what you're protesting. It's a beautiful fundamental thing. The whole point of the First Amendment is that you don't get to pick and choose who can protest. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's fundamental, and I'm a hawk on it. So I like talking about these things. I think they're super important, and I think it's fundamental to modern civilization. So that's why I like riffing on that. Another thing on the and then we're going to go into some of this immigration stuff quickly. Listen, I've said this a million times. I'm going to keep saying it. I vehemently, is that the right word? Support the right to protest. I support protesting, not just the right to protest. I support protesting in general. I've protested myself, many things. It's fun. It feels good. Always keep it safe. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I'll call myself out on this. So, if you protest but you then don't vote, if you protest and you don't then go to the voting box, and you don't engage with your local community, especially when it comes to matters of police overuse of force and police violence, especially with regards to that issue, which is managed at the municipal and state level. I think leaning towards municipal level. If you protest and don't engage with your community leaders and don't look up who your Fukin community leaders are, like who is the mayor of my city, what is that mayor's policy on policing. If you protest and don't look into that stuff and don't go vote and don't research, then you're not protesting. You're doing one piece of the puzzle. Protesting is absolutely a piece of that puzzle, but we need to take the next step. And I've protested and then not educated myself on the issues and tried to actually engage in my community. And I'm trying to be on my own ass. And I shared with this. I reached out to someone in my hometown, and I was like, I said, is there a way that I can engage? And he sent me he was totally right. He sent me a link to here's the Fukin council meetings, Brother Beast. They've been going on for decades. Where have you been? And he's absolutely right. I'm moving to a new city come Monday, hopefully a new place August 1st. That's the deal. But I'm going to try to be on my own ass, and I want to challenge you too. If you care about these issues, or even if you care about any issue, there's going to be something that affects you at the local. Engage and vote. At least you don't have to go to the city council meetings. I get it. People are busy. You're working. You're tired. Listen, I get it. But at least know what the fuck is going on. So you can't just protest. No, that's a piece of an important piece, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. Then you got to go do. You got to go to the voting ballot box. You got to fucking reach out to your leaders. I reached out to mine in my hometown, and they actually got back to me, and they read these things. So you got to take that next step. Maybe donate money. Campaign Zero. We've talked about that. That's another. At the end of the day, we have a system for addressing these things. And yes, it's been working too slow, absolutely. But you need to vote. You need to engage your local leaders. We get way too much oxygen is taken up at the federal level. Fucking 10th Amendment people. We got a federal system here. We got a central government. We also have fucking state government too, right? States, right? We get way too much oxygen on the president. I even talk about the presidential stuff too much. Even I don't talk about California stuff enough, I think. But even though those are the things that are actually going to affect your life a lot. But that's not where all the oxygen in the room is taken up. So just, I implore you, if you're interested in actually making a change, engage in your local community. There's 18,000 Fuking law enforcement agencies across the country. I think only 67 are federal. This is the state and municipal level, okay? This is not Fukin who's in the White House. That is part of it. Obama did urge his the Department of Justice to look more into different local law enforcements, which the Trump administration has not done. So that is a small lever, right? But the biggest lever is in your local community. So if you're gonna get out there and protest, God bless you. I love it. But also you got to do the other step. You got to vote, and you got to engage. So I just want to call that out. Okay, so there was I didn't read this whole White House press briefing, or it was like a statement. I don't know what you call it, but it was titled thusly: "Proclamation suspending entry of aliens who present a risk to the U.S. labor market following the coronavirus outbreak." So we talk about things on this show, and we've talked about it multiple times. We talked about things with regards to the coronavirus. We talked about things with regards to the Patriot Act, when the war on terror was started after post-September 11, 2001, September 12, 2001, Article 4 of the NATO Treaty, the first time that was ever invoked and the only time so far. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. That was a very big fucking deal. The 9/11 attacks, it changed everything. It changed the world. We've read articles on this show about what people wrote about the day after, the week after. We talked about that. We had that Epic Economist post, which was totally spot on. It talked about the United States shutting itself away from the world. Don't do that. It talked about a naive United States that didn't have the necessary security measures that Europe had to have. That Europe had already been dealing with bombings and things like this, and they had more security measures in their airports. The United States did not. It was very interesting. We've talked about that on this show. In times of crisis, that's when governments that's when they and partly they need to act swiftly. They need to do things, and sometimes things are going to get fast tracked that shouldn't normally get fast tracked. I get that. I'm a pragmatist. I'm not a total principled in my ways stump, okay? But the reality is you got to be careful. That's why it's so important that our politicians are tempered, they're measured, they think of things in context. They don't just vote decade. If I pass the Patriot Act, what's going to happen in a decade? This law is going to be on the books. What's going to happen? So that the Patriot Act has been in absolute erosion of American civil liberties, absolutely full stop. That is one thing that was proven. The United States, and I dog China. I dog the communist, Chinese Communist Party. I dog them a lot. And I also, I'm not just a China hawk. I'm not just a pro-USA guy. I call it out when I see it, okay? I'm constantly talking about the fact that General James Clapper lied to the U.S., lied to the American people. He lied directly to Congress. Senator Wyden out of Oregon, Democrat, and said we don't do bulk collection on millions of Americans. Well, it turns out they do because of the Snowden leaks, which were in June 2013, I believe. I stand with Snowden. We needed to get that out. When you have an institution such as the NSA, a bureaucracy lying to the American people about what they are doing and what they're not doing. You listen, I understand some stuff needs to be classified. I get that, but there's a difference between keeping things classified and lying to the American people. So I'm just drawing the context here. So when we talk about this proclamation to suspend immigration, on the back of the coronavirus, this is something they wanted to do. They wanted to do this. They were just looking for an excuse. They have a really good fucking excuse here. They're saying it's hurting U.S. jobs and given the coronavirus outbreak. Now, okay, what is actually happening? Well, it's suspending new work visas. It's making it hard. It's making it harder to work in the United States. Full stop. It's limiting immigration. Full stop. I was looking at some numbers. So the United States is about middle of the pack in terms of how many immigrants we take with regards to the size of our with regards to our population. I think we're about middle of the pack. Right near Italy. This was something from 2018. It just talked about. I forget. I just read. I think it was the New York Times. But just to put that in context a little bit. But just a word on immigration. I saw another thing by the World Intellectual Property Organization. This was tweeted, I believe, by the CEO of Stripe, which is a very successful company, tech company, and he linked to this piece. It was from 2013. It was a tally of 2013, but it showed the amount of people coming to the United States, immigrant inventors in the United States. And it showed a whole bunch of countries, the most, all the rich countries, all the most powerful countries, showed about 20, 30 of them. And the United States by far, and this is our competitive edge. This is why the Googles of the world, this is why Teslas and SpaceXs can happen. Because the United States absolutely blew everyone else out of the water in terms of how many inventors came from other countries. And it was a staggering amount. And granted, you can argue how accurate are these numbers. What is an inventor? And you can argue that, and I get it. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's directionally right. The fact of the matter is, people come to the United States because there's an opportunity to build something, and you'll have the resources. And if you can do it, and if you fucking if you put yourself to it as an immigrant, this is a great place to build things. Full stop. That was true 30 years ago. That was true 10 years ago. That'll be true 10 years from now. We got absolutely have a fucking hiccup right now with this administration. But that is our competitive edge. People think, they're fucking taking our jobs. Well, a lot of these, especially this H-1B1 program, a lot of these we can't fill these positions. We need immigrants to fill some of these positions. We need immigration. We rely on it. It makes our companies better. It makes us stronger as a nation. And people talk about buy American, hire American. In some of the Googling, there's some fucking think tank I stumbled on that was just, buy American, hire American. So two things. If an immigrant comes here and they believe in the American dream and they want to make something of themselves, that they are American, full stop. That's how it works. That's what America's all about. It's a beautiful fucking melting pot. You come here, it's not an ethno-fucking centric country like many fucking countries. Being American, you can you can be from a bunch of different creeds, you can be a bunch of different races. Okay, well, yeah, that's fine. But if someone comes over here and becomes a citizen, or someone comes over here to work and they want to make something of themselves, then they are American. And listen, I'm not even getting all lovey-dovey on you. I'm not saying, oh, it's everyone's, everyone's, comes over, they're American. No. I'm just being full stop. That's what it is. When you come over here and you want to make something of yourself, or you want to flee fucking oppression. You're talking about how Google was started. Sergey came over. I believe he was from Russia, or one of some country in the Eastern Bloc. I'm not exactly sure, but you want to come over here, boom, you're American. Full stop. That's the beauty of America. And America is an idea, and I still believe in that idea. And I think it's very easy to simplify this and say, oh, our jobs will be taken. No. That's way too simple of an argument. That's not how this works. We're actually better. We're launching rockets again because we allowed immigration. Okay, and because rockets are launching up into the air, how many Americans now have jobs? That's SpaceX. That's Elon Musk. He's a South African immigrant. That's just how it works. So are we missing out on some of the next Googles, the next SpaceXs, the next, even if you're not starting a company, but just the next person that wants to come over here and fucking work, and fucking make something of themselves? We're going to miss out on some of those opportunities because we're giving a middle finger to immigration. We're saying, we're this administration sending a message that you're not welcome here. No. We need immigration. Countries that don't countries like Russia have a net outflow of people. I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it's like immigration's a good thing. It's a good sign. It's people voting with their feet of where they want to take their fucking talents. They want to take their talents to South Beach. Okay, that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And I am curious, just to take this into broader context. What's remote work going to do? I don't know the answer. I don't know enough about what it's like to even work remotely for a foreign firm. I don't know. I don't think do you need a visa to work remotely? I don't think you do. It's a hell of a lot easier to work remotely, but it's going to be, we got to be ready to grapple with a world where in fucking 10 years, you think Zoom is good now? You think technology makes it easy to work remote now? No, it's still a hellscape. We're still at the very beginning of this S curve. We've just replaced in person with fucking, Slack is nice. Zoom is, video conferencing is just taking what we do in the real world and trying to replicate it, distributedly. That's not how you invent new things. It's not how you take advantage of new paradigms. We're not even close to the efficiency gains we're going to have with remote work within a decade. And Zuckerberg talks about this. He said within a decade we're going to have the technology to feel like we're truly present, just like we're in person. And I think absolutely. I think we'll absolutely be at that level. And what's it going to what does that mean for immigration? What does that mean for someone who's super smart, wants to work in an American firm, but that doesn't have to go through the whole immigration process, or at the very least doesn't have to jump through as many hoops because they can work from anywhere. They can work from fucking Asia, fucking Europe, fucking Africa. What happens to the talent pool? What happens to the global economy when the best person for the job is easily able to be tapped, because all these bullshit things like immigration policies, which I'm not saying just open the borders. Okay, there needs to be, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying there's a lot of things there's a limit on human capital right now. There's a limit because not everyone has internet access. Not everyone has the opportunity. Not everyone has the time to learn new things. Not everyone can move to a country. Even can afford to move to a country, or even get approved to get a work visa in another country, whether it's the U.S. or otherwise. What happens when we just completely unlock human capital? We're getting there. We're not quite there. I think the internet is just getting started. We're barely scratching the surface. Chris Dixon talks about this. What are the things that have been disrupted by the internet? Maybe retail. What is retail in the U.S.? What percent? What is it? Fucking Amazon 6% of U.S. retail. Maybe media on some level. Yeah, for sure. We're distributing over the internet. That's media. But there's a lot of things that we're still just fucking scratching the surface of what this whole internet thing can do, man. Like it's going to be insane. We are just scratching the fucking surface. You think giving everyone a supercomputer in the palm of their hand for $200, $150. Some of these phones are super cheap, $80, especially in developing countries. You think you're just going to give everyone access to all the world's information? Some bad things are going to happen, but also some really good things are going to happen. When you connect everyone, you connect all the bad people too. Ben Thompson talks about this. But you're also going to connect all the good people. And I don't think we've fully baked it into what's about to happen, because we've started the process of connecting every single human on the planet. The internet is the single greatest piece of technology that has had the widest impact, widest breadth. Not there's nothing. The computer, what was that? Maybe it got up to 1 billion users. I don't know. But the smartphone is what? I think 4 billion adults worldwide. The internet, somewhere around there. This is a technology that it's going to be ubiquitous. It's going to connect the world. We're almost there. We're doing it. We've got some hurdles, but there's going to be some bad things. There always are. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. There's no such thing as a perfect solution. There's no such thing as this will do X and it will cause Y, and Y is categorically good and there are no trade-offs. That's bullshit. There's trade-offs to everything. But I think we're just getting started. So I'm very curious about what's going to happen with the world when we what's going to happen in the labor market, what's going to happen in the idea market, what is it going to be mean to be a citizen of a country when you can do everything you could do before without having to step foot in that country. You could work, you could bank in that country. And, we'll talk about cryptocurrency, speaking of banking. But there's a lot of things on the horizon, man. It's going to be given a lot more power to the individual. It's going to give a lot more power to the individual. We're going to see some very, very amazing things coming over these next few decades. It's just strap in, and take heed, because we are in a fucking golden era right now. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk quickly on. Let's talk about fake news for a second. Okay. What's hilarious is Trump is absolutely the reason that people say fake news. He's the one that he made that term popular. And what's crazy is it's the one thing Trump has done that everyone agrees on. Like, people on the left say, oh, fake news. People on the right say fake news. Everyone says fake news all the time. And it's like, okay, guys, you realize that was Trump that said that. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. There are things that are wrong that are published by media. Full stop. I agree with that. But I challenge you. A lot of people say, I don't know what to trust. I don't know what to read. I can't really trust anything I read. It's like, okay, first of all, take a step back. Number one, I would say The Economist is my favorite publication. I think they do a really good fucking job. That's the first thing I'll say. But the other thing I'll say is, come on, you can tell when people say fake news. I think people have this. There's this view. You're legitimizing the view that journalism is dead. You're playing into Trump's hand by saying, by using the term fake news. I love throwing the term around. I think it's hilarious. I love saying it. But there's this game called Secret Hitler. It's a board game. It's, if you've played Mafia, it's similar to that, or Werewolf. It's kind of like that. What's amazing about the game is you can be a fascist in it. There's liberals and fascists. And what's crazy about that, the liberals have a voting majority. So as a fascist, you must. To win the game, you must sow discord. How do you sow discord? Don't allow the liberals to form a majority. They have a majority, so they don't. You need to insert yourself, and you need to make them not trust each other. And how do you not trust each other? It's an amazing way you watch this game play out. When you play it yourself, it's visceral how much you can feel it. You take that to a country scale. Yes, I'm comparing a board game to how to run the fucking country right now. Bear with me. Relax. The way to get everyone, the way that a strongman can seize power is by getting everyone not to trust each other. That's how it works. If we can't trust basic facts, then the person with the guns, the person in the leader can isn't held accountable, because no one can trust the people that are supposed to hold him accountable. It's called journalism. It's called the First Amendment. It's called freedom of the press. Now, I'll dog. I think a lot of people confuse op-eds. They confuse opinion pieces in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, whatever. They'll look at an op-ed. They'll say, oh, this person's, I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. They're saying all this shit, blah, blah. Okay, that's an opinion piece. I like to imagine that the New York Times has a lot of dog shit opinion pieces, full stop. I sincerely believe that. They're wrong on a lot of shit. And I'll be the first person to say that. Wall Street Journal, too. A lot of opinion pieces are... But a lot of people, when I think they talk about fake news, they're pointing to those pieces. I urge you, the New York Times, they got shout out Nice Things IO calls it a rag. Respect. The thing about these publications, if you actually go to them and you don't look at the opinion section, if you actually look at their fact-based reporting, they have a lot of really, really good reporting. If you read the fucking Wall Street Journal, the newspaper, there is a lot that most of these publications are just reporting facts. Objectively reporting, unbiased. They're reporting, here's the deal. It's up to you to fucking seek that out. Don't expect that you can scroll on Facebook and Instagram, it's all fake news, look at all this trash. Come on, man. You're a smart person. You can read an article and know if it's opinion based. Even if it's not in the opinion section, you can read it and know if it's opinion. You can also read it and know, okay, where are the facts? And I will say this categorically, journalism is not dead. Journalists are very important. They do a hell of a good job. A lot of them are very good. They want to get the truth out there, okay? If you actually read if you read these parts of these publications that not all of them again, but some of the heavier hitters, there's good journalism being done. There's fact-based reporting being done. Okay, so don't tell me that, I don't know who to trust anymore. That was on a Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk too. Joe Rogan's like, I don't know who to trust. I mean, I read the LA Times, but dude, come on, dude. There are things that you can trust. You can read something, you can read a fact and know that it's a fact, and you can then have an opinion on it. Okay, like that just plays into the hands of people that are trying to sow discord. There are still facts. Facts still matter. They still exist. People still cover them. Don't throw around this term fake news like the will to fucking live is over and the will to actually be a truth seeker is over. No, it's not. There's just more noise, but there's also more truth out there. Ben Thompson has talked about this, and we talked about it on the show. The internet has destroyed gatekeepers. I don't need to go through the New York Times. You know, the New York Times, they dropped the Weinstein story a decade ago. Why? Weinstein was a big advertiser of the New York Times. They dropped it. Why did the Weinstein story get out? It's because there wasn't a fucking gatekeeper. People can go around. They can get their story out without a fucking gatekeeper these days. They can also get fake news out there. They can get lies out there. They can manipulate you. But they can also get more there's more truth out there. Be a smart person, be a smart individual. If you can read, you do that extra step, you can fucking understand, you can cut the BS from the good stuff. It's very easy. Oh, I don't know who to trust anymore. What do you mean? Try 30 years ago saying 30 years ago, you could have said, I don't know who to trust anymore. There was fucking CBS, New York Times, what fucking else? There was very few amount of publications. They were all gatekeepers. They were all people in a boardroom that said, this is fit to print, all the news is fit to print, and this is not, and this is what we're going to cover. Now, it's a fucking free-for-all. I trust the news more. I wasn't around 30 years ago. Oh, thank you. But I would trust a hell of a lot more of the facts I'm getting today than I did 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years. People talk about the golden age, of America, like the 40s, 50s. They have this, dude, come on, dude. Grow up. Okay. Just want to riff on that real quick. And now I want to talk to the title of the show. We've got 12 minutes. We might not get to all this stuff, but I'm going to try to blaze through it. Okay. Apple, I'm calling them a hypocrite. So here are the facts. Apple's biggest market is China. China is run by a dictatorship, Xi Jinping, who's head of the Chinese Communist Party. That Communist Party is one of the biggest human rights violators on the face of the fucking earth. They censor what you can read. They censor what you can say. They will do things. We talked about this. The Uyghur Muslims, the Kazakhs. They will do things that are absolutely reprehensible. They're Apple's biggest market. Apple currently, and these are facts. I'm not even getting into the opinions. These are facts. Apple's biggest market. Apple has partnered with a Chinese state-run cloud company to store Apple users' data in China. All Chinese citizens have their data stored by a Chinese-controlled company. It's a state-backed organization. You can look it up. It's on Apple's own fucking website. What does that mean? Every Chinese citizen has their data is not secure. That is a fact. Here's another fact. Apple bills themselves as a privacy company. That's a fact. They sell it as a product. Privacy is a product for them. What's on your device stays on your device. It's yours. That's a fact. Another fact. They opened up WWDC by saying we want to make the world a better place, and they were speaking out against racial injustice, and they committed I think $100 million to racial injustice, and we want to make the world a better place. That's a fact. Those are all facts. Now here's where we get into a little bit of the opinion section. Like I said, Now, this is a little bit of the subjectivity. It's super, super hypocritical for them to say at WWDC and for them to sell their products as a privacy-focused company when their biggest market, privacy does not exist. In their biggest market and where they sell iPhones, which is China, and iPads and MacBooks. Their iCloud data is not secure. It's hypocritical for them to say they want to make a better world, and they want to seek out injustices, and then at the same time, I commend them for doing that. I commend them for taking a stand on that. But it is hypocritical to take a stand on that and then to also be working with one of the biggest human rights violating countries in the world. Apple gets way too much credit for privacy. They deserve credit, but they get way too much. Fucking Google's not in China. They don't have some censored. Fucking Google got a lot of shit for a project. I think it was Project Dragonfly, where they were going to make a censored version of their search engine. There was outcry. Yeah, sure, I agree. There should be outcry. No one's talking about Apple. No one's talking about how they're censoring news publications, censoring apps, censoring podcasts at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party. No one talks about that. These are fundamental values, human, modern civilization values that Apple is absolutely not helping spread. In fact, they're doing the opposite. They are partnered with the Chinese government to censor these things, and they're working with them as a cloud provider, full stop. This is honestly one of the most glaring things. Credit to Ben Thompson, who's talked about this. I don't think he goes quite hard enough on it, but I give him a lot of credit for talking about it. It's one of the most overlooked things in tech right now, in my opinion. Now, I will counter myself, and I'll say this. Is it better that Apple's there than not? I would say probably. Probably. Could they maybe... Apple's got a lot of smart people. They got a lot of... I do think, they're people that believe in the product. They want to do good work there. I'm not going to be the guy that doesn't know anything dogging from the outside. I bet they have a lot of internal discussions about this. I'm sure they do. Is it better that they're in China? Probably. And even though they're censoring and doing all this bad stuff, censoring VPN apps, for example, shout out Proton VPN, who released a blog post dogging Apple for their censorship policies, censoring the Hong Kong Maps app, preventing. This was about a year ago, I think. Hong Kong protesters being allowed to protest, or about 8 months ago, or something like that. Apple gets way too much credit. I don't think they should pull out of China. In fact, I'm not privy to these discussions. I'm not on the board. I don't know all the inner workings of Apple. But at the very least, we need to be on their asses more. I tweeted at Phil Schiller and Tim Cook. I did my part. That's all I could do. The media is just giving a big pass to Apple on this, and no one is fucking talking about it. I've been talking about it for years. It's on Apple's fucking website, and credit to them for being transparent about it. But come on, don't say yourself the privacy company you care about injustice when you're working with the Chinese Communist Party. Like, what are we talking about? I think a serious conversation needs to be had, and I had a prediction on no gradient. I think that at some point Apple will be held to account for working with bending over backwards even to work with the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, so we've got 6 minutes, if that. Damn, you know what? I'm going to hold off. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly on crypto, and we're going to have to talk about these other big issues later. But quickly on crypto. Okay, so there's this we've talked about compound finance. It's built on the Ethereum blockchain network. And what it allows you to do is if you have an asset, an ERC20 token, which is it's a fungible token. It means you can transfer to people's wallets and they can send it to you. You can lend and borrow assets on this platform. It's an algorithmic. It determines based on supply and demand. It determines the interest rate. So you can borrow if you have Ether, cryptocurrency that helps you run smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. If you have Ether, you can put Ether on compound finance and you can withdraw US dollars. You can loan out US dollars against Ether. It's an amazing platform. It's all built on smart contracts. You don't have to trust anyone. It's non-custodial. Why is non-custodial important? Non-custodial means that compound finance never has control over your assets. You are using their platform. Imagine a bank that doesn't actually have control of your assets. It's an unthinkable. These are the things that cryptocurrencies unlock. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. And I think we're just getting started. It might be a decade before before this shit really takes off. But there are things happening right now that's super interesting. Anyway, they have a that are using the network. So if you're lending or borrowing on their platform, you get a comp token. It's currently valued at like $245 or something like that. And I think it's probably overvalued. I don't know how to value a stock. A stock is valued because it's discounting future profits for the company, right, over time. That's what it is. It's based on future revenue that you bake it into the stock price. A stock price is basically expected future earnings, full stop. That makes sense. How do you value a comp? The comp token, what does it allow you to do? It allows you to vote on proposals and have control over the compound network. That's the whole point of the token. It's distributing control. We've talked about this on the show. What crypto networks allow you to do is to allow you to distribute control and allow the community members to have control over the network that they are part of. Imagine if Facebook early adopters and Twitter early adopters had a piece of the pie. They don't. It's Zuckerberg and Dorsey and the fucking shareholders that own all the value. There's all the value captured there. Comp, I don't know why it would be valued high. You want to pay for it so then you have control over the network so you can vote on proposals. I don't quite know why it's valued so high. It's just an interesting thing. And another piece to all this is I do think that it's very reasonable. Currently the largest cap cryptocurrency right now is Bitcoin. I think about 130 billion or something like that. I think it's very reasonable that the largest cap cryptocurrency will be a stablecoin tied to the US dollar. There's currently about 10 billion of USDT, which is US dollar, which is backed by Tether. There's currently 10 billion of it in circulation. I think it's totally reasonable that that's going to be maybe not USDT. In fact, USDT, there's been controversy around it. I know the New York State was investigating them or was it New York? It was a state or city. Anyway, they were getting an investigation. They basically have a bank account that backs every one of their USDT on the blockchain with a real US dollar in a bank account. So if you give them a USDT, they'll give you a real US dollar back. I'm very skeptical of whether they actually have the money in reserve that they say they do, and I think it's very likely that they actually are just printing USDT without having the reserves. Now, I don't have any evidence of this. They had in 2018, they had a kind of an audit. Some law firm said, okay, they've got the money. That was in 2018. And they have numbers on their website that say how much they have in their bank account. But there's no way to know how much money they have in their bank account. There's another stable coin called USDC. It's backed by Circle and Coinbase. I trust it a hell of a lot more. It's got about 1/10 the market cap. For some reason, the market is using USDT. I don't fully understand why. Maybe they don't have access to USDC in a lot of these places, but USDC is backed by a lot more reputable companies, full stop. So I think over time that's going to do a hell of a lot better. Okay, so this was an epic show. We got 2 minutes. Thanks for the technical issues at the beginning. Lars D, Nice Things IO, pray emoji. Thank you for joining live. Everyone joining live and everyone listening on the podcast, I really appreciate it. Yo, shoot me a line because I'm getting like 50 downloads on these episodes after a few weeks. Like, shoot me a line. Let me know you're listening. Let me know what you think. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself up here because, frankly, a lot of times it feels that way. But luckily, it's good for me, and I have fun regardless. So let me know also what you think of shifting this to Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. That's what I'm thinking of doing. Free up the weekends for everyone, not just you, but me as well. This was Dick Lucas. This was episode number 43. This was epic. This was fun. Thank you all for joining. We'll get to some of these issues that I did not cover next time, and now I'm going to update the bio on some of the description. But thank you for joining. This was fun. I love riffing with you all. This is energizing. We all learn. Let me know what you think. Dick@nogradient.com. And thank you all.